What?
Good.
Good, live?
Live.
Got the picture? Huh?
Huh?
You took care of the picture?
And I took care.
Took care of it? Not a problem. Alright. So, tonight, we're gonna... Welcome everybody. Tonight we're gonna talk about Akdomus. Akdomus is a very interesting poem. It's a poem that was written by a generation before Rashi. It was written a generation before Rashi. The name of the author of the poem is Rabbi Meir Shliach Tzibur. And this is something that we generally read before Kriyas HaTorah on the first day of Shavuos, when most people are falling asleep because they stayed up all night. And that's beautiful. And someone asked me an interesting question. You know, everyone is tired. Everyone stayed up all night. And you know, why are we reading this? So first of all, what we're going to try to do tonight is understand a little bit. It's really a conversation. It's a conversation that we'll see between who and who. It's an expression of love, of admiration for the Torah, for Hashem who gave us the Torah. It's really it's the conversation that someone who's in love has about whoever they're in love with. True love. Eternal love. So somebody asked me, said, you know, after a whole night, we're learning and we're so tired. Why do we have to stick this in? So I decided to answer the question, a little bit from more a background end. And I said it's not so much. Yeah, maybe you're right. But take a chassan and a kala. The type that they're really happy to get married. And they're crazy over each other. After the wedding, they're tired, they're exhausted. You ever see them say, all right, see you tomorrow? You see them walk. Do you see them even when they walk out of the hall? Do you see them exhausted? Do you see them falling asleep? No, they're excited about each other. Do you see? Okay, I don't have strength to talk right now. I'm going to sleep. No, they sit and they talk all night about how beautiful their wedding was and what happened and who happened and everything. The pictures and then looking at the selfies that everyone sent them, nowadays. I didn't get married that long ago, but in those days selfies wasn't so popular yet. Thank God. It's amazing how things change very fast. But anyway, you don't find anyone wedding. There was one couple that I know that after the wedding it really was that way. She went to work, he went to work, and the marriage didn't last anything more than a week. This is not what. Here we are building a relationship, and our attitude has to be not one of, I have to do this too, I have to listen to this also. I mean, when you're in love with someone, that's not the question that you asked. And if that's the question that we're asking, that means we're missing something fundamental. Because you can be doing everything right, but missing the boat. We're not here to stavit galashku that check off a box, I stayed up all night, I ate cheesecake, I ate this, I ate that. This is an investment, this is our anniversary. Right? Imagine 10 years after our anniversary, the couple goes out, They go to a nice place. They have a good time. And then they finish, and they go out, and they go home, and the husband's back, or the wife is back on Instagram and on Facebook and on business and all that. What do you mean? I did the right thing, right? I bought you flowers. I took you out. I checked off all the boxes. But you're missing the main part, no? And you take those flowers and you throw them in the garbage because they're not worth anything. It's a dead move. There's nothing real over there. Shavuos is a time when we're we're renewing our relationship. In that sense. It's an anniversary. Today we got married with Hashem. Today we finalize the relationship that's eternal, a relationship that's unbreakable, a relationship that's stronger than anything. So the attitude has to be one of, I want more. And if it's not, then we have to think why. It's not easy. But on the other hand, if we bring ourselves to a place where I'm obsessed, as one would be, and it's easier said than done. Rabbi Wallace in Zechron Livracha gave us a whole speech over here before Hashem about being obsessed with the Rabbi. Not in an unhealthy way, in a healthy way. So you see a young couple, how they are, or an older couple if that lived their life properly and their relationship grew even stronger. How they're into each other like unbelievable. They're each other's biggest fans and biggest supporters. That's what happens when you nurture a relationship, and it's beautiful, and it's enjoyable, and it's amazing, and each and every one of us can attain that. So that's what I answer this person. So because a person, we can have people come and they learn. I heard a very, very, very strong statement from, very true, something that I myself took very much to heart. Rabbi Moshe Weinberger from Woodmere said a very interesting thing. He said, you have places where you have lectures and you have classes, and it's really filled with a lot of content, a lot of knowledge, a lot of everything. But the people, you look at them 20 years ago and you look at them today, they're the same people. They haven't changed. They haven't grown. They stayed seemingly stationary. On the other hand, when you have another place where, there's a lot of good content, there's a lot of classes, people are learning, but they're growing. Because when in learning Torah, there's an academic part of it. A person can be academic as he wants, but still, you think, he's learning Torah for so long, so what happened then? Why is he behaving in such a way? Because he's not allowing it to talk to him. He's not allowing the Torah to talk to him. Maybe intentionally, unintentionally. We have to let ourselves grow. Let ourselves be enveloped by the enjoyment. Many times we'll have walls because of experiences that we've had or whatever, we'll have walls and put up the walls and say, no, I don't want this. Not because I don't want it, because I'm afraid of what's going to happen if I go for it. Like somebody was in a traumatic relationship. And they'll be very, very cautious about entering another relationship. Whether it's a marital relationship, whether it's a business relationship, whether it's a friend relationship, anything. When somebody was let down, for them to begin trusting someone else again is a very challenging thing. But in our case, we have to get up again and allow ourselves to be let in. Allow it in. Allow the simcha of the Torah, allow the beauty of this Torah life that we have, to allow ourselves to be caught up by it, not to hold ourselves back. Because that's who we are. It says, the Zohar HaKadosh writes, Yisrael v'Oraisa v'Kutsha B'Richu Chadu, the relationship that we have with the Torah and Hashem, it's not an external thing, it's internal. Same way we understand that a husband and wife become one whole, become one, become wholesome. Good evening, sir.
Hi.
We become whole, we become one. That's what we are with the Torah, because each and every one of us is a chelik of the Kamimah Mamash. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah, as we'll see in Akdamas, how it's referred to. And that's our. It's an inherent connection. It's not external. It's ours. It's us. It's part of who we are. So that's our attitude going forward. Yes, in such a situation, yeah, even if we were up all night learning, but it's not a chore. It's something that uplifts us. It's something that makes us want more. And our job right now, these few days, gearing up to Kabbalah Satira, is to bring ourselves to a place where each one on their level and in their situation in life, whether it's a man, whether it's a woman, each one has their unique role in this. But one thing we have, the common denominator between all of us, is developing that attitude and nurturing that relationship that we have with our Rabbi. So Akdamus is, by very definition, is an introduction. We've said many times that a Yom Tov is like when someone goes swimming, right? kicks off the wall of the pool, and that's what gives him the strength to go to swim further. Him or her. That means that push goes with him until he gets to the other side. Yom Tov, Shabbos, any experience that we have in Yiddishkeit is a live thing. It's not a ritual. It's a relationship. It's something real. It's something eternal. It's something that's forever. Every Yom Tov is Zman. Every Yom Tov has in it inherently. It's auspicious for auspicious, not suspicious. Auspicious for whether Sukkot is Simcha, Pesach is freedom, Shavuos is Kabbalah Satira. It's a time where it's easier than the rest of the year to gain those advantages, gain those levels, and come get ourselves to that place. It's a place where it's a time when we're able. That gives us that push, swimming in our journey of Avodas Hashem. So Shavuos, a day where we got the Torah, a day where this is the day when we accepted the Torah, when we got married, meaning that level of relationship with the Rabbi Shalom. We read an introduction, we're reading the Torah, right before, we say this Akdamas right before we begin to read the Torah, after we call up the Kohen, to show us that this is what this Torah is. This Torah is not just academic, it's not just laws, it's a life, it's a whole life. And every time that we sit down, not just on Shavuos, but throughout the year that we sit down to learn the Torah, this is what we should be having in mind, with this realization of what exactly this is all about. So let's try to take a few pieces, a few lines, and understand what this is all about. What's
the saw?
Huh?
What's the saw?
So over Shabbos we spoke with some people, some very interesting pshatim, that it's the beginning and the last letter of the Aleph Beis, and the first letter of the Aleph Beis, that it's never ending. It's again and again. Again, we learn more and more, and there's always a new thing. There's always new things to learn. There's always something new that gets revealed. It's limitless. That's one shot that I heard, which I like very much, and that's a very good question. Akdamos milan v'sharoyu shusa, right? This is the by way of introduction, Avla Shakil Nahamar Rishusa, as I take permission from Hashem to say in front of the king words of praise. You can't just go into anywhere and just say praise to the king. You need to be vetted, you need to be background checked, let in. But who are we? We are, we're the Evangelist children. We have protection. He's our father. Right? Out of respect, right? The proper way to do is, before we begin to speak anywhere, right? Kal v'chomer over here, when we're talking to Hashem, we ask for permission, for permission. The same thing we do by Shemon Esrei. Hashem spazai tifzachu v'yagiti l'secha. Before we begin davening, we ask Hashem, please open up my lips, that I should be able to properly say your praises. That praise you also have to know how to do. Barometer class the eftach ben akshusa. This is in 2 or 3 line couplete. I'm not sure to say that in English. We're gonna stanzas. Oh, very good. Thank you very much. And with the permission of Hashem, who created this world from beginning, and He will lead this world forever till the end. The end is the wrong word, actually. Forever, even when we grow old, we come and we go. Hashem is Almighty, is eternal, Almighty. Is here forever. The Gvur Olman law, His greatness is eternal. V'lasipek perishusa. But you can find this in the Machzor right after Shachar, right after Hallel, before we read the Torah. Gevil iluriki, if all the heavens were parchment, knei kol churshasa, and all the trees of the forest would become quills with which to write. Diyoy iluyami, and all the seas would be ink. V'chol meiken ishusa, all the water in the entire world would be ink. Diary are suffering, if all the people living in the world were scribes, that they knew how to properly write and express themselves through writing, Rashmi Rashvasa, it wouldn't be enough. We wouldn't be able to properly explain and express the real greatness of Hashem. But as much as possible, this is what we're trying to do here. So it begins with describing how the creation of the world, Israel created the world, controls everything, and leads everything, and constantly takes care of every little detail in the world. And as opposed to human beings, where we can get exhausted, we can get tired, right? Hashem doesn't get tired. The Goyim, the nations of the world throughout the generations have always tried to play that card. Haman went over to Shavuis and also said, the God of Israel is upset with them. He's angry. He forgot about them. He let them. But we know, in last week's parasha, what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu tell us? And even when Klal Yisrael is in the land of their enemies, the land of the enemies can mean as well each and every one of us when we're in the trap of the Yetzer Hara. In modern language, you call it addiction, or call it somewhere else. When we're, and it doesn't mean the person is chronically addicted, but we're trapped by something, right? We're doing something we shouldn't be doing, right? And we want to get out of it, and it's hard. It's hard to break the habit, right? That's also a level of Eretz Eveim, of the land of our enemies. Even when we're doing the wrong thing, we're in the land of our enemies. We're not where we should be. They will never be disgusted for me. I will never let them go. I will never destroy them. I will never break the pact that Hashem has with us. Hashem will never break that pact. So all these ideas that throughout the generations, the nations of the world have tried to bring out, and we'll see later on, they try to use that as also ways to lure us out of our way of life and to adopt their way of life. That's false. Hashem is eternal. Hashem is the Tachlis and Metzias. Everything came from him. He's Hoya Hoya V'yeh. He's Vechny. Был есть и будет. Zamen kol avidete. Hachyem Eshita, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world in 6 days. Zeir Yekore Ali Alei Korsi, the Shosn He created. And on Shabbos, when Hashem finished everything, he went up and sat on the Kisei HaKavod. That's the day of Shabbos. Everything is completed. Everything is perfect. Now Hashem has in Shemayim, has a whole entourage, has a whole court. Malachim, Srofim, Efanim, Chayes HaKodesh, and all of them, they all say Kedusha. If we look in the Siddur, when we say in the Kadesh Shimcha Ba'olam, Kishem Shemagdishim Oisi B'Shmei Amarim, we, Klal Yisrael, will sanctify your name here in this world, just as it's sanctified and glorified in the higher worlds, in Shemayim. And it describes in here in detail how each and every level of Malachim says the Kedusha, and we say this in Chakras, in the Birchas Kriyashma, we describe this a little. And it's huge, it's unbelievable, it's such a, and imagine changing of the Lahavdul, changing of the guard, or any sort of any sort of official thing in a royal atmosphere. Right? It's a whole mind, it's a whole production. Right? So multiply that by 100 million times the beauty of how it is in Shemayim. And it really is very nice. However, we're taught that HaKadosh Baruch Hu waits first for us to say Kedusha. And only then can the Malachim say Kedusha. Our Kedusha, our sanctifying of God's name, is more dear to Him than that of the heavenly, all heavenly spheres. HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us and values us much more. Now, and I said this in short because we're on the clock. But imagine that. Take that thought for a second. Hashem has everything. Everything is perfect. Everything is perfect. Yet, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will prefer. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will prefer the imperfection of a human being. We're not perfect. Definitely not always. Right? There's usually something missing. Right? We're human beings after all. Hashem will prefer that over what the Malachim give. If that's not love, what is it? It's not because we do a good job necessarily. It's because of who we are. Now, obviously, we should strive for perfection, and we can reach very, very high levels. But it just shows this is the relationship. This is the feelings, kaviyachol, so to say, that Hashem has for us. So now that Balak Domus goes ahead and describes the conversation that sometimes happens between Klal Yisrael and the nations of the world. And I believe we can also say that this is the conversation that happens between each and every one of us and our Yetzer Hara. Goyim come together and they come towards us like waves of the sea. And we're here in Golis, right? The Akdomus was written in Golis. Akdomus was written in the time of, around the time of the Crusades. And Rashi, this is the generation before Rashi. During the time of Rashi, the Crusades were already active. The Balei Tosfos. It wasn't a simple time for Klal Yisrael. And it was written in response to different, in response to different, that's one story. In response to different hardships and calamities that were befalling Klal Yisrael, and we needed a strengthening in Emunah. So the Goyim will come and they'll tell us, especially at that time and now, we're they have the upper hand. They have the upper hand. Although they always say that we do. Really, we're in Golis. We're not home. We're not where we belong. And we're every single year, every single day, we're saying, "Ani Imam ben Shleima b'Vias HaMashiach." We're waiting for the big Yeshua. We're waiting for the big salvation. We're waiting for all of it. And we're waiting and we're believing hundreds of thousands of years. Hundreds of years, actually not hundreds of thousands. Hundreds of years, then thousands of years. At this point, thousands of years, we're still and we're not giving up. So tell us, what are you waiting for? We've had many times stories throughout, during the war, different times where Goyim would mockingly tell a Jew, let your God help you now. This is exactly what it is. What are you waiting for? You think he's still going to come for you? He loves you so much. Where is he? Why is he letting such bad things happen? For him, you're willing to risk your life? Come to us, be like us. This was the Crusades, and throughout the generations, in many different forms, whether it's in the form of political pleasantries, or in more tougher forms, depending on the generation, depending on the time of history. Basically saying, come to us, we'll take care of you. Missionaries, what do? Come, you'll be big, you'll have it good. This is happening throughout the ages. The same story. Come, leave this alone. This is already old. This is already finished. This is already done. We're the strong ones. Come join us. You'll be on the top. All talk. Once it happens, usually it's not the way it works out. And even if it would, even if they would, yeah, we'll give you the biggest position. You'll be all the way on the top. Yeah, just come join us. The Chachmasa Masiva Lahoim. So Klal Yisrael answers with wisdom to this question. If you would have only known, and if you would have only had this clear knowledge that we have, this clear belief which is passed down to us, which we see in our lives, even in the darkest of times, which this is affirms of our belief that Hashem never left us, and the day will come when everything will be, with the day that we're waiting for will come, and everything will be perfect. When the light of the Geula will come, and the light of Hashem will be revealed in all its glory and all its might, and Hashem will will punish those who deserve it, and will give reward to those who deserve it. And we will be, we're waiting. We're in the hardest of times, we're waiting. Will come a day where HaKadosh Baruch Hu will reward us for that patience. And here it goes on to describe the joy of the Geula and the level of how much reward tzaddikim are going to get. And then he goes on to describe the Suda, the meal that we'll have with Hashem. The tzaddikim will all be in a circle. The Gemara says, and show with the finger, Zeh Hashem kivinu lo. Yeah, this is the God. This is the one that we will. This is what we were telling you about. He's going to come take us out of this. This is Zeh Hashem kivinu lo. And now, Nagila v'nismacha b'shuas, and now that the salvation has finally come, we're going to rejoice in that salvation. Because it's not necessarily about what happens, the instant gratification, but rather sometimes it takes time. For all that, when it finally happens, and hopefully sooner it's going to happen, it's going to be something unreal, something immeasurable, something absolutely surreal. The level of that happiness, the level of that perfection, the level of that greatness. So if the answer to the game is, maybe you're offering me some honor, some fame. And maybe, so I'll have it for what? For a day, for two, figuratively? For a year, for 2 years, right? Every time someone else comes, so this one is good and the other one makes problems. depending on who's in charge, who's running the place. Right? Yeah, you're offering me. What are you offering? You're offering me something temporary. Well, I'm waiting for something eternal that you'll never have. And yeah, maybe now it looks like we're all the way down there. There's a tax. There's comments. There's hatred. But there will come a day when all that will pale in comparison to the greatness that we'll have. And it's not the fame that we're waiting for. This is what we're saying, and I think that's the most powerful thing. It says in I believe this is Shir Hashirim. Shbati eschem b'nois Yerushalayim. Made you swear, daughters of Yerushalayim. In Timtu is Klal Yisrael Kaviyachol is saying, in Timtu is Doidi. If you will find my beloved as a reference to Hashem, Ma tagidu lo, what should you tell him? Ki cholas ahava oni, that I am sick with love for him. Take a mashal, what is this referring to, right? You have a wife sent her husband out. There was a draft, and he had to go out to war. And the war is going on for a while, a year, 2 years, 3 years. And she's not going anywhere. She's not going with anybody else. She's not going anywhere. She's nothing. She's being faithful. She's staying strong. And she sees someone going back to the battlefield. He came back for whatever. And she tells him, do me a favor, please send a message to my husband. Ki choyla sahava oni, I'm sick with love for you. The same thing the husband says and sends a letter back. I'm sick with love for you. I'm not giving you up. Yes, there's physical separation between us, but we're one. We're holding on. So if someone were to come and say, leave him alone, leave her alone, what would be the answer when there's a real relationship? When there's a real strong relationship, the answer would be, yeah, so maybe I'll feel good for a few days. But nobody can substitute my husband, nobody can substitute my wife. And Hashem tells the Satan, nobody can substitute my people. And we tell the nations of the world, nobody can substitute our beloved, no one can substitute Hashem. So whatever you're offering me, it's not worth it. Pales in comparison to what we have, and even what we have now in Golos. I was by a dinner yesterday, and somebody made a siyam hashas, a siyam masechta. I apologize. A siyam made a siyam in a masechta, huge. Learn through a whole masechta and Torah. This is, again, as we said before, this is not just academic knowledge. This is his forever. This is his olam haba. This is olam haza. This is his treasure. No one can take this away from him. When somebody was speaking and he turned to him and he said, "Let me ask you a question. If I would tell you that give up what your entire masechta that you just learned, and I'll give you a yacht worth $700 million, and I'll give you the $700 million in addition." He said no. What? You cuckoo? No, he's not cuckoo. Because once you taste that, nothing can substitute. Nothing can substitute. At the end of the day, when push comes to shove, a Jew is not going to give it up. Why? Because that's Yisrael v'Oraisa v'Kutsha b'Chadu. It's the Torah that binds us together. Our devotion of saying, I'm going to do the right thing, no matter what. Even though I may want for this minute to do something that I shouldn't do. Because it'll give me maybe some temporary gratification. But when we think, that's why it says, a person doesn't sin unless something overcame them. Because if we're in our right mind, how could we? Whether it's Limud Torah, whether it's Kiyum Torah, whether it's whatever it may be. The way we speak, the way we dress, the way we act, the way we eat, everything that we do, keeping the halachas that we have. Behaving in a way that's befitting for a royal child. It's interesting that Nesiv Shalom explains why there's no barometer. Right? For example, the kizayas, you have a measurement. This is a kizayas. 4 amas, you can't carry in the Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos 4 amas, you have a measurement how much 4 amas is. There's no measurement for midas. Right? Pirkei Avos, right? Midas, there's no measurement. It is a measure. The word of midas is to do everything in the right measure. But there's no barometer. This is because certain things you can't, it's self-understood. You're a royal child, you're royal, you live in the castle, you live in the palace. There's a way to conduct yourself with certain things you can't write in a paper. Because if you don't get it, you just don't get it. We're royal, we're princes and princesses. There's a way that we need to conduct ourselves. That's inherent in us. When we're connected to the Torah, when we're close to the Torah, that's the connection. That's what holds us together. Holds us together with the Rabbi, holds us together with ourselves, with each other. That's what connects. You have Jews that meet each other from other ends of the world, but they connect how? They learn the same piece of Gemara together, the same pasuk in Torah together. And they connect them, all of a sudden they're related. They're relatives. I never met you before. But because we really are relatives. We're one people. Mika'amcha Yisrael, who is like your nation Yisrael? Goy echod ba'oretz. One nation. Atem kurim odam. Not anoshim, we're one person. We're one body. We're not many different people. Zakoin kat shematun shvach l'shirosa. B'nai Yisrael, that we heard this whole, and I highly recommend to go through with this in English. This is all beautiful, really beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. We only went through a little bit. This is to end how it ends off. Zakoin, how fortunate we are, B'nai Yisrael, that we hear this great praise. Kivin came to heaven, b'havan b'hanu chavurasa. I will bless you that we should always be able to be in this group of people, of Klal Yisrael, of learning Torah, keeping the Torah, to merit, to do the will of Hashem, to be among the tzaddikim, to be among the righteous, always. The siskun diseisvun be'elo darosa, and that we should always be in the front row, above the Malachi Asharis, like we are Klal Yisrael. Hashem should always love us and value us like it's described. Hashem waits for Klal Yisrael to say Kedusha, and then only then the Malachim could say. That when we listen to Hashem, we follow the way of Hashem, then that's when all the glory, that's when the glory shines forth. Elevated as Hashem, who was always there from the beginning and will be there forever. Tzevi v'isribon, Hashem wanted and He desired us. And I want to quote. I saw a beautiful translation in English for these words, which I wanted to quote for you. This is gorgeous. I saw this today. I said, wow, this really does it. Here. Tzivi, Hashem wants. V'isrivon. And He chose us among everyone else in the world. Hashem asked everyone else, but He wanted us. You know, when you have 5 things to choose from, and then you go ahead and you really want this. You really want this. So you have to look at the other choices, but you really set your eyes on that one. Hashem wanted us all along. Hashem wants us. Hashem was never. He wants us in the most possible, strongest way. And to us, His nation, He gave us this tremendous gift, which is called the Torah. So now I hope that we should always have to really accept the Torah. Proud and accepting the Torah means taking on something practical to strengthen our connection and our relationship, both to learning the Torah and to adhering to the laws that are written there, which ultimately means doing the will of Hashem. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful Yom and a wonderful evening.